Hey, everybody, and welcome to Accounting and Accountability. We're relaunching the UTS Accounting Weekly Show in line with the new subject at UTS, AAA Accounting and Accountability. My name is Dr. Amanda White.
And I'm Dr. Nelson Ma.
And we'll try and do these things in person as much as possible. However, this week, my eldest has COVID, though he seems perfectly fine with the amount of Nintendo he wants to play, so it doesn't seem that sick.
Well, yeah, it's good to hear that he's still doing well. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed that I don't get it because I'm supposed to be going to Melbourne. We're both supposed to be going to Melbourne soon for a variety of different conferences. So it has been a tumultuous week. Nelson, what's been going on?
Well, things aren't going too great in the business world. So, if you've watched the news, the business news, you've heard about inflation. You've also heard about things like stagflation. So
what is stagflation?
Well, we'll get to that. But I guess first we'll start with with why everyone's so pessimistic right now about the risk in the economy. Much of it has to do with concerns of high inflation. And the consequence of high inflation being interest rate increases, which we talked about last week in a previous show. So, Amanda, what is inflation and what is driving it?
So inflation is the price of products increasing. And with increasing demand and constrained supply, you're always going to have price rises. That means that the things that we pay $10 for a lettuce today, and we would have paid 10 cents for a lettuce 50 years ago. So there's always going to be some inflation, but when it gets out of control, that's when we get concerned. So we know that lettuce is selling for $12 a head. If you can even find it, I went to my local Woolies on the weekend. I couldn't find lettuce. It used to be about $2 for a lettuce.
Yeah.
And this is like KFC can't get their hands on lettuce. Hence, they're now using a mix of lettuce and cabbage. McDonald's apparently has lettuce supplies locked down. They say that lettuce, they've got all the lettuce that they need, working with their supply chain. And this is usually expected when the economy is growing, because of high demand. However, we don't have higher demand. And it's winter. Who is eating a lot of salad in winter? But we have supply issues because it's a supply and demand issue. So we've had the rainy season. We've had this La Nina weather phenomenon right through from our summer, floods right through to now, plus shortages in some key commodities around wheat, especially because of the Ukraine war. So this raises the idea of stagflation, which you mentioned earlier. What exactly is stagflation, Nelson?
All right, so stagflation is kind of this worst case scenario where prices go up, and because of that, people want less and wages go down as well. So it's typically driven by situations when demand is much lower than supply, and this is due to all these supply constraints. So for a restaurant, for example, right, you've got the cost of vegetables, let's say, to make and meat to make a dish. But if the costs are going up for these inputs by so much that they need to raise prices in order to make a profit, that is probably going to lead to lower demand because people don't want to pay such high prices for their food. And as a result, businesses will need to cut staff, and that brings down average wages. So we've got this, and that creates this sort of spiral where if less people are buying, then you're going to need to increase prices more in order to cover all your fixed costs. So it's a pretty dangerous spiral that we go into, and it's happened in Japan the last sort of 20 years or so. So yeah, not particularly great.
It's going to be tough because, especially for our hospitality industry, they've just starting to recover from 2 years of COVID and intermittent lockdowns. We know that there's already difficulty in trying to get staff because we don't have a lot of international tourists and backpackers working in hospitality. The government is pushing for an increase in the minimum wage to try and cover the cost, the increasing prices. So it's really this wait and see. And we've got to see what sort of levers the government is going to put into play as well. One other thing, I don't know if we have any viewers in Queensland, but they were told to switch off electrical appliances over the last couple of days at peak periods. And there is concern that we're not going to have sufficient electricity supply. Power prices are going up, but a lot of these things we can't cut back on.
Yes.
So, like, sure, you could cut back on your lettuce, and they think that these shortages for lettuce will ease off in the next month or so, I think, on ABC
cabbage.
News.
There's
always cabbage.
You like cabbage? You like cabbage? It's crunchy.
You slice it really thin with a mandolin. You can stir fry. It's got lots of fiber. It's supposed to increase flatulence, which my kids think is hilarious because I've got boys and fart jokes are always appreciated. And Nelson, I think you were telling me earlier that if you take home a KFC burger with lettuce and you reheat it, like the lettuce goes all soggy.
It just sort of wilts. So the thing is, if you don't finish your KFC burger, you're like, oh, okay, I'll wrap it up, put it in the fridge for later. Once you open it, just like it's like
just soft and
it becomes soft, but as cabbage will sort of retain a bit of crunch and robustness. So
I wonder if we've seen an increase in the demand at Bunnings for little greenhouses and packets of lettuce seeds. People are desperate.
Yeah, apparently they've sold out too. Yeah, incredible. So I guess now it's like, well, what does this all mean? Well, it means that the stock market is afraid now. Everyone that's in the stock market, you may have noticed that we had a massive drop of nearly 4% in Australian listed companies.
Just 100 billion yesterday, I believe.
Oh yeah, close to 100 billion wiped off the stock market of our largest companies. To date, in the last sort of 2 months, the US has gone down. The US market's gone down about 22%. Australian market just about 11%. And this concern is about what we just talked about: high inflation numbers. Prices have increased a whopping 8.6% in the US in May, year on year. So what you paid $100 for last year in May, now you're paying $108 or $109.
Ooh.
So
and there's a lot less government sort of support and protection in the US.
Well, the government doesn't really have much power here because, they've already given out all this money and all they can do is stop. So the only option they have now is to raise rates in order to reduce demand. And if people are buying less of a product, the price should come down. They have a different mortgage system too, right? Yes.
So if you can't afford to pay your mortgage, you can just hand in your keys and walk away.
Yes.
And then the bank has to deal with it. So that might even create sort of more issues around housing. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and related to housing is this idea that if prices are going to go up, you're going to have to increase interest rates in order to push demand down. So usually I'd say, who are the winners and losers out of this? But I guess it's a question of who are the worst losers, Amanda?
Yeah, we're all losing at this point. If you're an individual trying to sell your house right now, you should have done it 6 months ago to get the maximum, because interest rates are certainly going to drive house prices down there. We do have very overinflated house prices in Australia. Our growth has been, hundreds of percent higher than the rest of the world. But the companies that are most sensitive to higher interest rates seem to be tech stocks. So tech, because they're riskier companies, have had the biggest drop. They've got the largest amount of debt to try and scale themselves up to get themselves growing. And because you have a large amount of debt, even a small interest rate rise can become very expensive. Yes. And that debt is not like a normal home loan where you would take on a 25-year loan. Often a lot of business debt is short-term 1, 2, or 3-year loans that you're paying interest only on sometimes, not even principal. And at the end of that point, you have to pay it all back by getting a new loan and refinancing. And so we saw last time in the GFC that some businesses might not be able to refinance. So like buy now, pay later company Zip requires considerable debt, and
to pay the companies that are selling the product. And
exactly.
The money from the customers that use their product.
And I think Zip was in the process of being taken over by another company, which is in now dire financial straits. Yes. So tech stocks have really, really suffered. And pretty much everything lost money on the market yesterday, which was our first day open because we had a Monday public holiday, except for the Crown Casino Group, Crown Resorts, which is about to be bought out by Blackstone, and I think one internet service provider survived the bloodbath.
Yes.
But what other companies have really suffered?
So energy companies haven't done too well. So if you think about sort of Woodside Petroleum, they sell oil and petroleum products, and we know that if there's a suppressed demand for products, if people can't really afford to pay their mortgages, they're not really going on holidays, they're not catching planes, they're not driving their car to go on a trip. So that's going to bring down the demand for oil, and that's going to hit the bottom line of these energy companies. Also consider banks. Because of high interest rates, the market is expecting that banks aren't going to do too well because all the demand for their key product, which is loans and mortgages, that's going to decline.
Credit cards.
Yeah, even Bitcoin, has tanked in the past day.
I'm not a cryptocurrency believer, so
yeah, neither am I. Doesn't follow the accounting as far as I can tell, and so investors are selling out because that's a risky asset. And when there isn't much money in the economy, investors would rather put their money in something that's safe and crypto and
tangible.
Yeah, tangible.
People go back to blue chips.
Yeah.
I think if you're looking at anyone who's mining anything related to battery technology, those types of things, your staples, your supermarkets, all that sort of stuff. Because people, we might cut our Netflix or other luxuries, but we still have to buy the essentials.
Yes. Okay, so Amanda, what advice do you have for people that have shares right now and aren't doing too well?
All right, so if you're seeing the share market go down and you're thinking, what do I do? You only lose money if you sell your shares. All right, so longer term, holding over the longer term is always the better option because the market will eventually recover, and the market does go up slowly over time. The key at this point is to think about, just like I said last week, saving and your budget, and just putting away that little bit extra for a rainy day in case you need it.
Absolutely. Of course, this is all not financial or tax advice. Make decisions.
This is what we do in our personal situations.
Yeah,
I'm saving my pennies.
This is purely entertainment purpose discussion.
All right.
So Amanda, what are you enjoying this week?
Well, this week, I guess last week was the launch of the latest BTS album and the new music video, which I was very confused about because I didn't understand why they were in a desert with a bus and all these other things. But thank you to all of my K-pop fans and the BTS army, my followers who were very kind to educate me on sort of the symbolism and imagery from all the previous music videos. So we've been listening to that album.
Okay.
That's right. A nice sort of background one because it's not in English, so I don't feel the need to sing along, and I don't know Korean. So, and on not Netflix, but on Disney Plus, I've been slowly working through Marvel Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Okay.
Before Marvel was purchased by Disney, they had this ABC TV show.
Yes.
That was serialized for 7 seasons. So I've been watching that. Plus, Bluey, new season of Bluey has started. So that's on with the kids as well. But what have you been hanging out with?
Well, on the theme of Korean exports, I've been watching, it's my flatmate. My flatmate is Korean, so he really likes Korean shows. So been watching Our Blues. So Korean drama, very, very, very dramatic, very emotional. So,
is it sort of like Days of Our Lives type of drama?
In a way, it's a lot of like drama, a lot of like about relationships with a significant other, relationships between parents, between friends, and the tensions involved there. So very emotional, really good show.
I've been wanting to watch the new Michelle Yeoh movie. Is it Everything Everywhere at Once?
It's fantastic. Everything Everywhere All at Once or something. But really, that's a really fantastic movie.
Well, I've got no chance to go to the movies. So when it comes out on Apple or one of the streaming services, I'll definitely be watching that. Awesome. Well, we hope everybody is staying warm. I am here with a blanket because it's so cold. Big Hero 6.
Oh, Big Hero 6.
Big Hero 6. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
But otherwise, have a great week, everybody.
Bye.